welcome to the playground experience. We have April, which is in the middle of doing mommy duties. And then we have also our own here, Stephanie Gibbs, our own marriage and family therapist from what's your unique perspectives,
Practice therapy solutions.
solutions.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. All right, I like therapy. Okay, I had to put it all together. So she got her own little now official company, and so I'm so glad about that as
Oh, thank
well.
you.
Yes,
Thank you.
and so this month he brought to my attention about that it is, and I seen that even on I think BET as well, where they were talking about that this is again Minority Mental uh, Health Awareness Month. And I was like, oh, I had not even heard about that. And so that's interesting. And it falls in line with even with this Cancerian energies that we're experiencing now, where it is a push for family and also a clearing of generational things. And a lot of times, again, what we're talking about in our minorities, there is a great lineage, especially like culture and the ideology and the philosophy and the way in which we do things is based upon generational passed down, rather than traditions, those things. And as we're doing that and we're talking about the families things and the systems of things, also the things about how we're doing things, although like I tell my kids in my classroom, that might be what's norm for you and your family, but then as you see on the outside and you experience the worldly things, you'll see that people are not doing it the same way. And that's also the way we think. Some of that stuff is also passed down as well, and because of our environment, the way we've been taught and we've been raised. And so, again, sometimes it's so close knit when we're talking about that as a minority group in our cultures. Sometimes we're so like this that we don't want to expand and go out and look for help like professionals, because it's like nobody understands us but our family, or nobody understands us but our culture. And it's hard for us to want to reach out. And so that's interesting that it falls in line when we talk about the Cancerian and what really feels like home. And I think some of us are now getting that push for looking for to clear these lines and maybe not knowing how to do that. And this way of addressing about the mental health issues that have to do with minorities, whether it's matter of African American, Latino, Latino X, or Asian descent, or Asian Pacific descent, Islander descent. There's something again that, again, with the stigma of mental health and issues, that in some of them that reaching out and seeing a person like Stephanie, there might be a tabooism about that. So I think it's just great that she brought that to our attention as well. And I'll talk about later on, and we'll mix it all in about how also right now how karma and the energies we're getting pushed to as well to release those things too. All right. So tell us a little bit about that, Stephanie, again, about what I wish I could be on this one. What it is as far as about mental health and minorities
Okay,
that
well,
you have
first I
found.
want to give a shout out to the late great author B.B. Moore Campbell. This month was established in her honor because she was an advocate for mental health resources in the minority communities, and I think it was established too because she had a family member who had mental health issues. So that's why it's an important, like you said, our communities. We never did think mental health or had an opportunity to explore mental health in our communities and the importance and treatment. So now that it's coming to light, more of us are going to therapy now and seeking out treatment. And I thank you for bringing up marriage and family and how things are passed down through lineages, and as well as how we influence each other. And that's particularly important for my demographic. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and we study systemics, and that's what a system is, a family, and nobody is greater than the part. There are some parts, which means that everybody influence each other in that system, their thoughts, their behaviors, how they
Hmm.
speak and whatnot. And like you said, one system is different from another system. And even though you're 19 years old living in Detroit, your system is different from somebody family that live in Oakland, California. So you're definitely correct.
Yeah, okay, all right then. I was just challenged. See, Spirit knows everything. I
Mhm.
just tapping into the encyclopedia the Spirit gave me of all that information. But yeah, and so that to me, in that unit or that system, it kind of keeps us kind of in bondage or kind of in jailed or can't in prison. Thank you. They can't be able to get out of that system because of us and the systems. Like, it's all right, like we had said on the podcast too, just pray about it. And sometimes that's because that's what my grandmama did, that's what great grandmother did, and that's it. And so that is a great issue as far as us dealing with that in this, and also with the mental health thing. Yeah, and so just for that, can you give a little background about BB Campbell as well too, a little bit more, so that people can kind of understand about what happened with her? I remember what happened, but what was going on with her?
I think she had a family member who was dealing with severe mental illness, and she tried to get that person treatment. I believe she wrote a book called 72-Hour Hold about the experience. Like I
Okay.
said, I think she passed away from cancer, but she was a real advocate for making sure that the minorities, especially African Americans, knew about mental health and how important it was to get treatment and things. So Congress established Minority Mental Health Awareness Month in her honor.
Oh, okay, okay. I did not know that it was official. I thought it was just, we had said that, but of course, if they come up with the month, it has to be official. We just don't. Well, yeah, we have come up with stuff and pop up, especially on Facebook, and it started as a trend. Everybody will start kind of linking into it, like Crown Day, National Crown Day, all those kind of different things, as well. That we have. What I have seen here, that has been popping up in some of my sessions too, is what I'm doing in one of the past life regression session that I had here, is just really it seems like it's kind of like it's heart centered, and how the pain that one parent has or has endured, maybe ancestral, as well as maybe historical, like even enslavement, or also as far as what they had to do as their occupation, and them being able to provide for their family and doing things of that nature, seemed like it kind of caused from them to have this kind of mindset or a breakdown. And so with the one of them not being able to provide or mentally be able to take in the pain and the pressures of where they were in enslaved times, they passed on that down to their other generations. And although they might not have the mental health issues that the first one was to fall into real heavy depression, like that, or anything like that. Okay. Manic depression or whatever it is, I don't know the terms, but what it is very heavy. And it seems like because of their children being a byproduct of that, it seems like to me they learned how to think that way as well, although they might have came in the world naturally okay or no mental issues, but because they were surrounding that affected them as far as how they mentally had their movement within the different relationships, whether it was in the family as the mother to be there on
Well, she was serious in flow here, so we'll wait for her to reattach. But what I'm noticing is,
outside.
being
All
you want
right,
to,
I'm sorry,
do you
I went
remember
out.
where you're at? Do you
Yeah,
remember where you are?
yeah.
Okay.
It seemed like it's almost like an infection because it's coming from this generation to the next generation to the next generation to the next, and it's just like it stemmed from them. But everybody else, I think, had the opportunity to start and be clean, but because of that, I don't know if it's in the cells or whatever, like that mentally, and they got affected by it. It just becomes generational because of this one person and how they were affected. And so that's what I'm thinking in some of those instances when we talk about mental health with minorities. It looks like it's starting from the head in some kind of way of them being in that situation. They're experiencing the same. They had no choice but they experience the same thing. If I'm saying it in so many words, can you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, part of it is called epigenetics and how
Right.
trauma and issues are passed down from generation to generation. And if you have like a grandmother or a mother who don't know that they're dealing with a mental health issue and then they don't have good coping skills, those behaviors and patterns that will be passed down to the next generation. And if they don't work taught that, this pattern just gonna keep continuing. So
Mm-hmm.
the lovely thing and great thing about this generation is that we're more open to mental health treatment and things. And you have other guys like social media and things assisted in that process. So now a lot of people are having like aha moments and things. And me as a therapist, I have the unique task of helping people connect the dots. It's like Pee Wee Herman song, connect the dots. So they don't
Mm-hmm.
know that this is related to that, and that happened because your mama had it when she was over there and she experienced the same thing. So I just help clients put it all together for them and give them coping skills.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's one way of looking at it. Ava, did you want to add on? Because I know you about the generational too, the
Well,
epigenetics.
I have a whole section in my book talking about epigenetics and how they can be manipulated. And using, meditation and mindfulness, you can actually start to shift the signatures. Now, one thing that's not being, or maybe it is being fully acknowledged, because we talked a little bit about this during the mental health month, is that we're all collectively going through a set of traumas, and whether that be um, media induced fear mongering using the most sensationalized stories to um, put people in fear or in opposition, as opposed to looking at, okay, this collectively, this type of idea or this type of work pressure or this type of um, structure in society has not been working. So overall, um, mental health issues are popping up because it's a breaking point, right? So if we go to the point of saying it's actually just the way that we have mental health in general and how we care for ourselves and our bodies, we can overall help society acknowledging. It's not just when it gets to the point of an issue. It's the point where it actually is just the way that the construct of the society has been, that it hasn't been functional or feasible for anyone. So this whole situation, especially when you're looking at history being both truth and lies, right? People can feel that within them. They know that something is up. And then when you're talking about us and our group, we have that space where there's a layer of spiritual attunement. There's a layer of, you know, I, multiple forms of our gifts in terms of trusting our intuition. But we spent years being suppressed into you don't have an intuition. You're going to do what we say for survival. You're going to do these certain things for a coping mechanism. So overall, the African American or the Black culture, which is like bereft of an actual country, it's a matter of getting into the space of, okay, we collectively know that this hasn't been working. So, what are we willing to shift? And most of that starts with the communication. And then being able to not only communicate within our own structure, our own family dynamics, past all the triggers, past all the extra stuff that's like layered there, we start to get into the, okay, well, all of us feel like we're without, all of us feel this sense of friction or this sense of we have to like struggle really hard in order to make it. No, that was actually a cultural response. That's more like a survival technique,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can't trust a black man because of or a brown man or whatever because of this that. No, it goes so deep that it's, oh, they stole us. They beat them when they wanted to be together. They stole the husbands and the children away from them. Of course, they're having these issues, not only the mental issues of fearing of abandonment or having to have hyper control, but also not being so reserved that they can't show emotion. A lot of the things of now taking on a masculine role when they didn't have to take on a masculine role just for survival for themselves and for their children. And we're still looking at outphasing other people's post traumatic stress, which is, Okay, well, we have to group together against another group in order for survival, right? Like, you know, racism is not inherent within the child. It's something that's taught, right? So teaching not just the opposite, but acknowledging that they're similar, not only just separating, okay, these ideas didn't work, but they were taught. Just like the racism. This racism wasn't ideal, but it was taught. And what's interesting is in Hawaii, there's still the layer of suppression that happens because the monarch was illegally overthrown in 1893. So these people are still alive. Their culture is still alive. We have several generations of death and loss that has separated us from our original origins. So not only is our history doctored and written in a way that manipulates and disempowers us or has disempowered us, but it is in a way where, okay, I'm blessed enough to be here to witness, oh, this is actually still happening, this injustice. We don't think our injustice is still happening because we're not in shackles or we're not getting whipped or you know what I mean? We're not having to sleep with master, but we still are in a sense because we were never able to feel it and acknowledge it. And I recently just posted about compound post traumatic stress and how just now, after years of working on safety and security and feeling comfortable enough, now my body's actually feeling it. Now I'm releasing tears. Now my body's just, I'm allowed to feel the joy, right? Because before it was don't even feel extreme emotions, except anger kept coming out, right? But it was more than just anger. It was more than just my anger. It was my grandmother's anger and my great grandmother's anger and my great great grandmother's anger and that suppression because we're still going back to we're not even we're just a little bit before World War II, and for me, that's 3 generations ago
Mm-hmm.
or 4 generations ago. That means I know I'm still carrying that because look at how people feel and react about money. Look at how they feel and react about. They're automatically just we have to shift. We have to go with what they're saying because that's how we survive, and that's not how we actually thrive. But that might have been how we had to survive. So when we're looking at like the compound stresses and the compound trauma, as a specialist, um, what are some good approaches to even beginning to sit with it? Because, you know, even when you suffer severe abuse like sexual trauma and things like that, you don't let yourself feel. You kind of, I mean, I'm a disassociative. There's several different methods. Maybe you can talk about the different ones like maybe it's the attachment styles or however it works, whatever your technical terms are, but how we can even acknowledge that we're experiencing something or we're disassociating from something, and then two, what are some ways to actually start to shift that.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Well, one of the things you first do is acknowledge it and accept it. I think that one part of our problem is that we don't acknowledge it or accept it or recognize it. We just was taught to act like it didn't exist or don't happen and just continue. That's number one, recognizing that you have a problem or issue, that you have been affected by it. And then if you realize that you're not processing it in a good way or processing it at all, that you might need to take a step and talk to a professional, because it is likely that when you have complex trauma or complex compound trauma, like you saying, some people start to disassociate. That means like your body and your mind is not connected anymore, and you might not be able to feel anymore, or you might have anger that you don't know where it's coming from. So it's different ways that your body and your mind respond to trauma. And like I said, the first way you need to recognize it. A lot of people are in denial about it, and that can cause them to like drink and smoke. Something else that I have seen, because we are new to mental health and taking treatment. A lot of times when people have emotional instabilities, because that's another thing that can happen, We think everything is bipolar. It's not bipolar. Bipolar is the two opposites happening at the same time, like somebody being depressed but having a manic moment. Another issue that we have that I'm seeing a lot of is something called borderline personality disorder,
Mm-hmm.
where people are emotionally unstable, but a part of them is shut down and they can't recognize what emotions they're having and they can't balance them out at all. So that is another effect of trauma. So there are many things that a person can experience as trauma. So, like I said, the first step is recognizing that you have a problem. That's number one.
Yeah, because I was saying if I'm disassociating, how do I know that I'm disassociating? Because I'm not in touch with my feelings, I guess, in some ways, if I'm over classifying it. And so, how am I supposed to be able to associate or get in touch with my feelings if I don't? And how am I supposed to recognize that? I guess after a while, maybe in some ways, I'm feeling in some ways they're saying for my guys it's like once you keep on getting the same results, then that's when a person probably becomes tired and say I think I need to go on ahead and call somebody and talk to someone. Kathy D says, can trauma cause blocks?
Yes. So some of them blocks are one of the major blocks is called disassociation. Um, it's not just that your body can go numb. People who have disassociation, they can be spacey, could be daydreaming. They get
Okay.
lost. They lose track of time. Um, like you said, they might have go numbness in their hands and feet. So it's different types of disassociation. Some is called depersonalization, where they lose in touch with themselves. They lose touch in a reality. They can have amnesia. They can have identity confusion. And one of the severe cases of disassociation is DID, or multiple personalities. That is a result of that, where your mind just split and caused different personalities. And sometimes, in most cases, that is the result of trauma.
So, I'm just going to be candid, because I'm raw with y'all, but that's exactly what my um, my baby's father had because of the trauma.
Hmm.
He
Mm.
has splits and he didn't remember time or space, but he was still doing stuff. He's like, I
Okay.
don't remember all of yesterday. I was asleep. And I was like, no, you did things and they weren't great, but you did some stuff. And so they diagnosed him as schizoaffective, but I thought it was way deeper than that, which
Mm.
means not only was he physically abused, but he was abused in the womb. He comes from the half Hawaiian, which is also a very traumatized line, right? Because their nation was stolen from them, and then when I took this class that looked at what happened with it was a goddess studies class. We didn't talk about goddesses at all. We ended up talking about the effects of colonial post effects of colonialism, right? And how how everybody wanted to own the black woman, right? Because that was the they were less than animals, right? All people Black people were considered less than animals. And then black men were the first ones given rights. Women didn't have rights, so they could own and think of property as black women, and that was the only thing below them. So the lowest person on the totem pole was the black man, and the only thing below him was the black woman. So everyone was constantly in an effort to suppress or feel better than the black woman, and I still see the repercussions of that today. The repercussions of that still happen today because I can see that when I show up in full power, some people, particularly people who have white blood in them, whether they're conscious of this or not, they actively try to shut me down or belittle me or make something, and I'm just like, I'm just here, right? So the fact that my presence is so powerful that you are that your genes are kicking in makes me and they're in a subconscious state, right? Because they're just like, wow, I've never said anything like that. I don't even know why that's coming out, but they're trying to find a justification. But it's depending on where I was in my journey before, I would fight for my space, right? Like in words or using some type of logic. Now I'm just like, let me sit back and let them go ahead and start to chew over their words and start to hear and experience what they actually just said. And then they realized, oh wow, I'm actually actively suppressing you when you didn't do anything. I'm actively trying to put you in your place when all you're doing is showing up and being there and being supportive. I show up and I'm super candy sometimes. Like I'm diabetes candy. Like I'm just loving and sweet. And then they still feel the need to try to shut me down. It's like, oh, that's so first of all, a lot of people didn't get the type of nurturing, right? Because the way society was structured, old paradigm style, parents were away from their kids. Sometimes the care providers weren't even able to be present because they're under so much pressure to provide with so little resources. Then you're also looking at the compound trauma issue, right, in terms of survival. So it's been a real interesting journey, not falling in love with the trauma bond, right? Because everybody's got so much trauma, right? I want to nurture that trauma. And then they want to turn that into oh, everybody's a narcissist. It's like, no, people's just trying to survive. And most people are in a state of fight or flight and survive. But narcissism is like an actual disorder. It's not just a definition that people have narcissistic tendencies, but not everybody's a narcissist, and that's also kind of like a scapegoaty thing. As she said, we're frozen. I wonder if we're still frozen. Are we still frozen right now? So in terms of what Kathy D asked, she said, can trauma cause blocks? Absolutely, absolutely, right? You all can acknowledge that trauma can cause blocks. Stephanie just said that as well. But even after you recognize it, so what I've been actively doing, because I'm realizing all of these things are coming up and I actually feel comfortable enough to integrate them. It's more than just talking about it. There's an embodiment practice where you have to figure out when you're disassociating. Because I remember that I have very little memories because of so much trauma that I've experienced. But now I'm slowing down, right? Because you can't go fast and try to heal these things. It's not the internet. It's not like 2 clicks and it's done. It's okay. Now I'm slowing down and figuring out where, and I start to disassociate. And sometimes I disassociate when it's good things. Sometimes I shut down when pleasure is happening or something good is happening. Like I'm not allowed to receive this type of pleasure. And then I find out when I'm totally 100% present, it's usually eating, right? It's like I can enjoy being present and eating food. and that's kind of like a big deal because
Can
I'm working. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to add something. So disassociation is something serious, and everybody have it to a certain degree when they experience things. But be careful if you disassociating and you having some severe disassociation that you get it treated in the proper way. I'm not going to say you shouldn't self-treat it, but you want to make sure that you're doing it and you under the guidance of somebody that can help you, because you don't want to end up doing more damage than you don't know about, because you may not know the reason why you disassociating in the first place. And like I said, I'm studying IFS, internal family systems. We recognize that you have different parts. And in that theory, when somebody is disassociation, the different parts will show up and take over in that situation. So you want to make sure that you understand the different parts of yourself that's showing up when you disassociate, and that you're not overstepping or causing more damage to yourself than needed. So that's what I wanted to say.
Since we're talking about minority health, mental health awareness, is that this association more pretty much experienced in the minority than in the other races, because of the trauma bonds that you all are talking about? It's more likely to happen because of that, or is that kind of like just no, it's a universal thing?
This association is a universal thing, and it's more
Okay.
common as a result of a trauma experience. So
Okay.
anybody can have that moment of disassociation. Like I said, it could happen um, like during a car accident or something. It
Okay.
could happen. I experienced it when my aunt passed away 2 years ago. I just couldn't feel my body. I've heard people just say they lose track of time. So it's depending on what kind of trauma you have experienced and a degree, you could have different levels of disassociation. But be careful. If you know that that's good and you're aware of it, but make sure you're talking to somebody that can help you integrate those parts and know what's really going on. So you just don't want to brush it under the rug or whatever.
Or do a lot of self treatment. I got this. What's that commercial? And I see that on TV. And the man was with the weights, and he's like, "I got this. I got to go through my family and my grandfather." And is he like, "Dude, just
Right.
give me the weight." No, I'm just gonna settle with it, and I'm just gonna stay right here. And he's like, "Huh?" And so that's what you're saying, like with disassociation. That's not like that commercial where you keep on with the weight and
Right.
then you don't go and get you some professional help. If somebody's offering you help, get the help that you need in order to do that. And so, yeah, so, right now, where the focus is now, uh, especially in, like I said, cancer season, we're in cancer season. We had the new moon that was in it. For some of us, this is very hard for us to kind of move that needle to that we're not grounding. There's a lot of emotional stuff coming up, a lot of stuff that's karmically, those karmic lessons, those hard lessons are coming at us to help us to unload all this stuff that we have been like with a knuckle bear down grip on. Uh, and we're not releasing to let go on ahead and do that fool's journey, which is letting it fall and just letting the chips fall as they may, and to be able to be thrust into this new chapter that spirit or the universe is trying to even present to us. And so right now what I'm seeing the current trends is that us just really clearing. It's a lot of family stuff, a lot of family stuff is coming up from even dealing with clients, even with myself. I felt like giving my mom a past life regression session. I said, I think I want to undo some things from her end to help to release on my end. A lot of stuff that we're finding ourselves while we're here. One of the missions we're finding is that we are clearing for the family. Maybe we knew that, but now we're moving into the energies like, no, I really know that that's one of my missions is that I'm clearing for my family because of this, or I'm making sure that again there's things that I have traumatically that had happened, and I'm here to make sure to clear it out and showing physically why I'm doing this. Or and I'm seeing some things about relationships dynamics. Um, Also showing up that it's time to clear that up and to stand in the gap for my ancestors that maybe weren't able to do that because there's such a patterning that's happening, and I'm seeing I'm falling into the same pattern, and it's now for me to stand and say, nope, I'm not going to go for that. So I think all of us are feeling that push too, because again, it's about it. The thing is, the buzzword is systems and it's patterns. It's been is the buzzword that I'm seeing patterns over and over again. Rather, it's what we talk about mental there too, but then patterns about relationships and how it's kind of kept me, our whole family, in this same going down like circling the drain, and how it's like, okay, it's time to actually flush. We can't let it just keep on sitting there and float and don't do anything and float it and flush it and say it's time to go, like disappear from our lineage. So, cancers is about the family. It's about the heart, and then making sure that you're in tune with things that is resonating and making sure that it feels. It feels good. Yeah. So it got to
Well,
make sure that it feels good too as well. Yes, April.
well, part of it is self-awareness, right? So a majority of people who are watching our channel are very maybe over analytical and hyper aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the things that they don't know that they don't know.
Right. True.
So when you are seeking your assistance or your help, first of all, many hands make light work, right? And you want to get sometimes multiple opinions. I'm going to put this out here because when you're talking about patterns and systems, um, one of the issues with my ex was he had a therapist, but the therapist didn't care, which is an issue. But because he was of the same race, or he said he was this, the ex also had a pattern of not knowing how to ask properly for help or advocating for themselves, not being able to say, this person isn't working, I need another person. um, and he was going in circles, or he would sometimes lie to himself about the issue because of what the past was, and because his past was XYZ, the guy just wrote him off and didn't help him, and it became so horrible that there's all kinds of legal stuff that is now an issue. So I'm not saying that anybody else's story is going to be this extreme, but what I'm saying is part of the pattern might be lack of self advocacy. Part of the pattern
Right.
might be not saying no. Like, just because you've tried one therapist doesn't mean you've tried all the therapists, and you can find someone that works for you. And also, not trusting yourself. You can do work with yourself and on yourself if you're going to be honest with you, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you're going to sit there and you have a little bit of a delusional, like, self-inflated ego thing, then yeah, of course, you need to be able to hear feedback. You need to be able to hear that kind of stuff. So it's a checks and balances. There's several ways to get to the number 9 on this, but where is your number 9 actually trying to get to? Because I did talk therapy for years, but all they did was open me, leave me raw, but without any integration, right? So I started working with multiple across, not only in the therapist and psychology or psychiatrist realm, but I also started working with energy healers and sound healers and all of these things, and started to find what I needed for my own integration. And so you too, first being able to open and be vulnerable and talk about it, but with the right person, right? If part of your pattern is, I get victimized when I tell vulnerability, you might have a subconscious, self sabotaging little space in there.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So, finding that space that works for you. Um, what else do you suggest?
That's what I say about Stephanie. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this, I wanted to put both of y'all points together because you said something very important. I think this month a lot of a word that came up was conditioning. We hear about that word a lot in high school with sports and things, but we don't really know what that applies to like mental health. So when you talk about systems and families, families condition you. You condition each other. You learn from each other. So in college, we learned about Pavlov dogs. So
Right.
unfortunately, they don't teach about Pavlov dogs in high school. So he did this experiment and learned that if he paired a treat with a bell, after a while, when he rung the bell, the dogs would salivate for the treat. And that is the same thing that happens in families. If we not taught coping skills or relationships or learning how to love ourselves and whatnot, that is conditioning us how we process and form relationships as an adult. It's still conditioning. So when that happens, like she was saying, one of the things that we were conditioning might not have self-awareness, not being able
Mm-hmm.
to advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself because you learned that as a child. So then when you go to a therapist or something and you don't advocate for yourself, you open up yourself for other wounding and things like that. So
Right.
in this path of healing on this twin flame journey, start to find your voice. Listen to Auntie Katina, Emmy, Bettina, and April, and start taking in what they're telling you about self awareness and healing yourself. And yes, go to a therapist, but all therapists might not fit for you. I'm like more of a gentle person. My supervisor is like a judge, and my other friend is like a lawyer. So that might not be the approach for you. So therapists are like shoes. If they don't fit, it's okay to move to another one that fits. It's okay. Don't sit somewhere where you're uncomfortable and somebody, like you said, is victimizing you and not listening to you. You are paying them for a service one way or the other. So make them do the work. I believe my mom said she had a therapist that fell asleep on her. I was like, why was you still sitting there? Get up.
Get my
Get up.
pocketbook. I'm out.
Yes.
See.
And then us in this twin flame community, we deal with different parts of ourselves. We have a twin flame part that's there, and we have a higher self that's spirit. I like IFS because it identifies those parts and it recognizes those parts. So maybe that might be an outlet for us to go to a therapist who say, I have a part of us that's like a twin flame, And I want to recognize my spiritual part so that can be brought into your therapy session. So that's my take.
Yeah,
Do you have
oh, it's always good to me. It seems like that somebody that understands you and really has, to me, if they can be, has been there and done that. And what I mean by that, when we talk about bringing it back to the cultural aspect of it, you know, even though they might be of a different culture, but it's got to be some type of form of respect there and understanding, and want to deep dive into it to understand that you might do things a little differently than what your culture is based upon. And not even cultural, you can go socially if we talk about twin flames. That's why it's very good to get you an open-minded um person or therapist that's open-minded to it. Because if you're gay and this person in their core, this is like, I don't believe in being in gay, I don't believe in homosexual, and they're trying their best, it's going to kind of semi bleed through as far as in that section in their dealings with, if they're really that strong, unless they know how to kind of really put it to the side. You don't want to talk to them because again, their biasness might kind of seep through. That's the same thing, like you're saying about the, when I'm tapping into the therapist that's with the father of the baby of nephew. Some of that stuff is like it's eternal. Although you take the oath to do no harm and to put those things to the side, but it seems like everybody is not that. Just like they say about teachers, everybody ain't, all teachers ain't for kids. Some of them just collect a paycheck. Same thing with therapists. All therapists ain't there to make you whole. Some of them just is like, I'm just in it to collect a paycheck too. And it seems like that's what happened and occurred with the mom and him as well. And so you have to really deep dive into that and make sure you're finding somebody who is a very good fit that really understands that, or even if they don't have a background in it, that's really open-minded to a different aspect or a different viewpoint, or a perspective that maybe they have not been exposed to. Okay, but you could go on. I just wanted to add that on.
um I think that's a great idea. Um Conceptually, I think also it's like split a little bit. One is it's totally a vibrational thing, right? So when you attract someone that's going to work with you like that, there's a reason that you're doing it, and it might be one of those repeated lessons type of deals, right? Because with this cancer stuff that's happening right now, it's almost like people need to tell each other off. Now, I had a dead auntie come and visit me and tell me to tell my dad off, and I
Yeah,
had a living one tell me the same thing. And it's not tell him off. Just speak your mind, speak your story, speak what your experience was, and he is gonna hear you. It's that time. It's that energy of that resonance. Um, but the Libra moon is like, be balanced, make it pono, make it righteous, like easy. And I'm like, but sometimes that easy righteous pono is your kid up in your face. Stop pretending to be this family guy who's out there doing all this stuff when you really don't. You're doing it for image, right? The reason that everybody's acting all wild is because you never let them do anything in your over control. This person lied about me when I was a kid, and you took their side, and now I'm just dealing with that, right? And so it's me also advocating for self. And so the question that was asked by Kathy D, which is a great question, which is similar to what I was going to ask when a little while ago, was how do you advocate for yourself when you haven't been taught, or how do you step into something that wasn't it feels unnatural? Like, I get the kids get it, because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the ones coming in are golden. But us, we're still clearing that so it stays golden for them, right? So, what can I do as a person who doesn't know how to advocate for myself? And also, my next question was, how do I know when I'm with a good therapist that's good for me?
yeah,
So you need to start practicing self love and self care. Um, Self care is the act of self love. That means you start paying attention to yourself, start showing yourself compassion, start listening to yourself, start doing stuff that you enjoy before you can start trusting somebody else and speaking to somebody else. You got to learn how to trust yourself. So for yourself to start trusting you, you have to listen to yourself. Sometimes, let's say for instance, we got the strong black woman thing going on, and we think we need to run around all the time. Well, your inner self could be saying, please sit down and watch TV. Well, if you ignore that, how can you build trust with yourself?
Or trust the therapist.
Yeah. So the thing is, you have to start with yourself. Start using active compassion, being kind to yourself, speaking kindness to yourself, and then you might not find your voice overnight. But if you start speaking your truth, you start talking to other people, you start doing like you do chakra clearance for your throat. Start doing anything to motivate and encourage yourself because that's what it is. You need to find love and being positive and encourage yourself, and that will encourage your voice. And then from there, when you find a therapist, you will show up in that energy. So you, what was she asking? How can you find a therapist, or how you know they're a good fit?
How they a good therapist? Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, so a good therapist is gonna bring out the good and the bad and the ugly in you. It's not gonna always be peaches and cream. You want to make sure that you're being heard and the issues that you brought to them is being addressed. I like to give homework. That's my approach. I use a plethora of tools like workbooks, journals. They can play in my office. We play online. Anything that would encourage them to talk. Other people might just want to do talk therapy with you. I might do yoga with you. You want to make sure you feel comfortable and you are open to talk. If it, Because I use other tools, I might tell clients they can draw in session. If you don't want to talk, it's okay. You can take out a piece of paper and write it out and draw. It's whatever you're vibing with. If that therapist vibing with you, that's good. However, you might hit a roadblock or you might be resistant. I might be nice 99% of the time, but I do push my clients until they're uncomfortable. So therapy is not always comfortable. You might be uncomfortable. Some people come in and they start crying, so I always have tissue boxes ready. Some people leave me mad at me. I had one person, she was very religious and she had childhood trauma. Unfortunately, I had to tell her that she lived an impoverished lifestyle and she wasn't living it up like she thought. So she got mad at me. I'm not here to sugarcoat everything. I'm not your friend, I'm your therapist. So those are professional boundaries that you have to recognize. So I might be nice and friendly, but we have professional boundaries. Like I said, my supervisor is like a judge, and the other one is like a lawyer. So she come in hard, ask you about 100 questions. So it's whatever style suits you and what's best for you. So
Yeah, I had it and I lost whatever that thought was once I went to get something from the kids. Um, that is, the therapy, everything going back. It came to me. Everything when we're talking about is self love again, because you do, even though you don't have a voice, and you start loving yourself, you start getting more in tune with your body that knows say, they go in my gut. Something don't feel right. I feel kind of sick. Like that doesn't, you'll get a new attunement in your body that even if you want to lie to yourself, your body is gonna come and check you and say, they go that feeling. Like again, I don't feel that's that feeling I feel when I don't feel respected. Like some don't feel right. Like I'm talking to this lady and I don't feel like I'm heard, but I'm gonna keep on sitting here because I said the insurance said this the only therapist I can see. And so again, after a while, once you get into that self-love, like you said, no, we're not gonna take this. I don't care if the insurance said this is the only person I can see. I'm gonna go back to Blue Cross or Blue Shield or whomever and see if there's another person, or I'm gonna start paying out of pocket because I know I want to get healed or I know I want to get right. So that is so very true that again, once you start practicing that self-love of self, you start finding something spiritually within you, whichever is the divine feminine energies or the divine masculine energies, them both together standing up to say, no, okay, in my spirit, it don't feel right. The divine masculine energies within you say, well, we're going to go and do something about it because we ain't going to sit here and let us be misused like that and them talk to me any old kind of way. And then I get worse in this situation. So that's where that comes together, intimacy and that coming together of both those energies to say, okay, now let's manifest and give birth to a change in a therapist because
right,
this isn't right. And that is true. It starts from love, because if you that fear based, it's gonna keep you in prison. It's not gonna make you try to find any other kind of way. And that's interesting to say intergenerational, because I had did something with my mom, even with me putting her under, and I found myself trying to, she's like, okay, well, can I ask the spirit this? I'm like, yeah. I had to keep on telling her that she had permission. I said, what is this? It's like you ask a permission to do something that maybe our generation is like, oh, this is how you do it. You ask the spirits questions. So I'm learning that again, it's just kind of generational. Some things that's then impacted, like you got to ask permission. You don't jump out there and say things of that nature. And so that's another thing of how each generation, and like April said, yeah, these babies, these kids coming along there, they ain't waiting for anybody. They're just going, they got no filter. They ask the questions. Oh, this ain't working. I don't like you as a therapist, and get up and go. Like, okay, it's oh, but you got your 60. Whatever, keep your 60. I ain't coming back. Somebody in my mom's generation is like, okay, I'm gonna politely sit here, listen to the therapist. Okay, they told me I got to sit here. I'm not moving because that's rude. And how that kind of plays a part in that and all the cultural things. So I find that, like you say, it's fascinating how those things, generational or cultural wise, that we'll sit there and take some of those things until we really practice love, which is colorless. And it really makes us to get up and go and motivate us to say, no, I want this change. I don't care what it takes for it to happen.
That's right.
Um,
And like I even check in with my clients through the session. Like, are you okay? What does that mean to you? How does that look to you? What did you take away from this session? Did that make you uncomfortable? Because I know some of the stuff I say or do will make you uncomfortable, and that's the point. Change doesn't come when you're comfortable; it comes when you're uncomfortable. So sometimes I have to push you out that off that box. Be like, okay, now what? Now what's gonna happen? So
well, I've found that you can, even if you get used to change, if you're willing to step into the next space, you can, because I forgot what I was learning about, and maybe you can tell me a little bit more. But if you're given a certain level of the ability to learn to trust yourself and accept what's happening around you, and you're given a safe environment and you learn to explore, you can actually willingly step into change without it becoming so uncomfortable. You're like, I know I need to do this. You can actually do it without having it. Um, you don't have to get in a car accident to know not to speed. You know what I mean? But yeah, you
Right.
liked speeding a little bit when you first got it because you played all the video games, but you realized, no, I'm going to change my habits to preserve my well being. So, what are some ways, if you were basically taught from the foundation, um, incorrect behaviors? Like a lot of stuff that people do that I see that isn't great, or something like that I have to even resist within myself, is um, yelling as a way of communication. You know what I mean? Like unnecessary yelling.
Right. That's what we do. That's what I do. I'm just that because I'm a this.
or
Right.
or I won't even speak loudly because I'm afraid of being looked at as the loud black woman, right? Or I'm too aggressive.
Or the
Those aren't
opposite.
good. Those aren't good examples. Those aren't good
But
examples. I'm trying to
or the
find a good one.
opposite again. Loud is because that's who with that's how we are, and that's how to get power because we weren't having that. Or again, you have the other some cultures they're taught to speak very soft, as even in the feminine. I don't want to stereotype any, but we can kind of guess what it kind of goes with. It fits with speak very softly. Again, because I'm a woman, those things too play a part as well. So how do you do that?
how do I do what? Help the
I,
person that has.
yeah, that's been trained the wrong way because of cultural.
So what I learn is I deal with children and adults. I do social emotional learning. So self awareness is how we start that off. I teach
Okay.
them about their emotions and how you read emotions and how you project your emotions and how you read other people and how your emotions change your behavior and change how you think. And then a light bulb go off. A lot of adults don't realize that I'm doing a children learning module with them because they have never been taught. So self awareness come into it. If you walk into a room and you always the loudest person, at some point you got to have some kind of self awareness. Like, why am I the loudest person in the room? So it's stuff like that. So self awareness is a part of that. You just can't go through life being a bull in a china shop At some point, you got to take a step back and take ownership of your own stuff, and that's part of that. A lot of people wasn't taught as a child to have self awareness and take ownership of their own stuff. They like to continue to project until it causes a big problem and their life falls apart. So hopefully you can get to somebody before your life falls apart, and we can just help you, because after your life fall apart, you'll have other issues, like I said, borderline personality disorder, or somebody that's a narcissist or something like that. They just go through life, and then they come to a therapist when the bottom has fallen out. So go to a therapist before the bottom has fallen out your life.
I suggest that anybody who's working with anyone, especially spiritual, and they're working through a process of self healing, to have the team. Like, always get a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Make sure they got a good fit for you, because whatever's coming up, sometimes it's too much for you to handle, especially if you're doing embodiment practices like the ones I do. I heavily push towards people getting a therapist or people having someone they can speak with to make sure that they're staying in progress and or in process, versus, like we were talking about at the beginning, etching a deeper wound. Like, yeah, you can keep picking at a scab and make yourself a whole giant, huge, festering, thing that's going to be a scar.
Mhm.
Um, and so, what are three things we can do to kind of make sure that we're good, we're in the right path. Sometimes I feel like I go through the process of over analyzing myself to the point of thinking, okay, now stop, don't do anything because you've done too much already. you know um it's like you can't I can't take out the salt, but if I add just a little bit of salt, I can, the dish tastes good. But if I keep adding that salt, what are some ways to know that we're doing good? Because I'm realizing now that part of my process is learning, that maybe I like a little action all the time, but that's not a healthy thing, right? There's got to be some lulls. There's got to be some, like, time for not only integration, but like accepting this as the new level, right? Without having that underlying fear of something, the back's going to drop out all of a sudden, or I push too hard. What are like three or four things we can do to make sure that we're still in the right process, but we're not pushing ourselves too far?
So every life is about balance. You need balance on everything. So don't be sitting there doing 30, 40, 50-day challenges, mental health or spiritual health challenges without balancing out. It's okay to do those things, but you need to make sure you balancing it out with some fun stuff, some self-care kind of things, and listen to your intuition. Your intuition will let you know if you're on the right path or not. So if you healing yourself, and all of us have angel numbers or synchronicities, I believe. So if your numbers
Mhm.
are showing you like, hey, you're on the wrong path, listen to that. If your intuition is telling you you're on the wrong path and you're doing too much, listen to that. But if you're on the right path and you finding peace and you find seeing that you have a progression, keep going. So like even in therapy, we have goals with clients, 30, 60-day goals. So this borderline personality thing is come up this week. That's why we're sharing it. Because that personality disorder is so extreme, we have to break down those goals in little increments. So that goes for anybody healing. Break down those goals in increments, keep a track of it, and monitor your progress. So if you still at the same level you were 2 months ago, that might not be the right journey for you. Or you might need to do something else. But if you see a progress and you see that you're doing better with something that before you wasn't doing too good with, then you might be on the right journey then.
Thank you. That was pretty good. I mean, that was good for making sure that you're not pushing yourself too far. Because I feel like a lot of people on this journey, they're older maybe, and a lot of our people that be watching us, they're older. They've had so much trauma, or they've had so much negative aspect, that they want to make the positive come and last as long as possible. So they throw out the huge net trying to make all
Mhm.
this stuff happen. But it's like a matter of slowing down and
Yeah.
actually, do you have the capacity for what you're experiencing, even or for pleasure even more, for
Yeah.
positive self feedback? Are you are you at least in more gratitude than you were when you started? And for
Yeah.
yourself, are you in awe of yourself and what you've actually gone through and what you're processing? Because it is a familial process. Are
Mm-hmm.
you amazed at yourself for what you're processing for your whole family? Are you giving
Mhm.
yourself credit, or are you just thinking of the things that you're not enough of, or the
Right.
things that you're lacking, or that kind of stuff? And
Yeah.
I
So
hear that because there's something about an addiction to just complaining, or
yeah.
like it's not enough. Like I'm like, I actually just feel great right now. Like,
Hmm.
but then you get with a friend and you're like, oh, I want to start. Do I really want to complain? I don't actually. I just
Hmm.
want to talk about all the great things right now.
Right. So show yourself compassion. That's what I always preach about to my clients every day. Time I talk to them, I say, show yourself compassion. You might be faced with an iceberg worth of problems, but you only chip away at it a little at a time. Appreciate the small steps. Recognize your small steps and your accomplishments because what you're doing today, you probably didn't do 5 years ago. So sit there and be like, oh my God, I did good today. I actually journaled today. Or I was able to go for a walk today outside. That is good. You probably was laying in the bed before because you were depressed. Sit there and honor that about yourself. You're doing good. Nobody is perfect. This is not a sprint. It's a
It's
marathon. So it
marathon.
takes time. So I had to learn that coming into this field. Like you said, people who have trauma, may not have had this much trauma as the next person. So I can see what they need to do to get better. But because they have trauma, they have cognitive dissonance and can't understand. So I can tell them to do da 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 to get better, but they won't be able to accept it. So I got to give them one thing at a time, one little piece at a time, one piece at a time, and eventually them pieces add up to a big thing.
And for those of us who have, let's say, cognitive dissonance or disassociation or, addiction processes or, or our twin has these things, how do we accept it? How do we accept ourselves and love ourselves anyway? I'm sorry, I don't mean to lead it so much. I was like, I feel like I'm leading this question with the answer. But yes, I'm
Yeah, start
professional. There's
listen
some
to
ways.
these lovely ladies on this channel, Divine Sunshine and April and Kathy D. Start loving yourself. Your twin will start loving themselves. Recently in this journey, I don't know if I went through separation or through surrender. I don't know where I'm at right now, but I had to realize that I'm leveling up and I'm doing better. And I realized that maybe my twin is still doing something else. So I had to do self love on myself and be like, okay, I'm gonna progress, and maybe one day he will catch up. But I heard through the lovely Juanita that he's working on childhood wounds now. So maybe understanding that you might have to separate or surrender might actually cause your twin to start stepping up and doing their work. So it's okay to do that too.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's kind of where we are. That leads into a whole different show. But yeah, that's where we are. Where a lot of us, a couple of us are and seeing that it's still some things that childhood wounds that you have to deal with. And that's kind of where we are if you're talking about like collectively, especially with the energies of our partners, and we're seeing those ones that like we're doing but they're still stuck on I won't say stupid, but the needle is still stuck on that same groove on the record, and they're not moving to the next track like we are. We're finished with it and we're ready to move to like the album on side B, but you still stuck on side A, track 2. And so that's kind of what's going on. So separation of more of a looking at ourselves and concentrate and say, okay, that's all right. You go off and work on yourself. I'm gonna go and work with myself and do on with the mission work that I have been doing. And then you doing that is gonna cause them to go turn inwardly and saying, okay, looks like I got to work on some stuff. Some of that stuff again is still family. They got to work until they clear that stuff out, and that's the agreement they have. Going back to what we said about what's happening in the cancer season, which is about family. So again, childhood, what is that? Again, family issues, what is that? Got to clear it because that's part of my contract. So you might be finishing up, which if they're still in their stuff, that means you're still haven't finished up your stuff yet. In some ways you might have and going to the next chapter, but they're like a little beat behind. So that could be in your divine masculine energies. You are the divine masculine energies right now is kind of leading the way as far as how we doing outwardly and changing the things, because that inward push from the divine feminine energies. So the divine masculine energies is kind of like coming in our partners if they haven't did the work. It's working them to push them. It's like I'm seeing them tethered. It's like, okay, I'm going, you're going, in that way. Unless they do free will and they want to clip it off, but that we ain't even on that. That free will starts to complicate stuff, but that's what's going on right now. So they're not going to be where you are right now. You got to watch that, because again, once they do go on, it's going to be a forward propel and they're going to be in the driver's seat and we're going to be like, whoa, wait a second, okay, I'm catching up to you, and then we'll do that. But that's
Can't
a whole
wait.
different chapter.
Well, I think,
I can't wait. I'm tired.
part of the
Yeah.
part of the issue that I'm hearing, because I hear it within myself, is the hierarchy, or someone's better than another, or you got to be further in the process and doing this and that. Some twins come together in total shit show and come together and they rise, right? So it's not about where you're at or what you've done or what they've not done or what they have done. It's a matter of proper alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're ready to receive consistently, some of us still have this, my toys are getting taken away, or my good things, we still have that process. And, some of us were taught that mom was always right and dad was always wrong. So I got to be always right and they got to be always wrong. Like we're still going through that dynamic
Right,
of,
that's that old paradigm. Uh-huh.
right.
Totally
So
agree.
shifting, continuously focusing on the self, not necessarily saying be narcissistic or invalidate others by trying to put up yourself, but we are the old paradigm is hierarchy. So we always talk about it in terms of one person being better than another person in order for some kind of power dynamic. When in reality, it's all intermeshed and it's all one thing. So if they tend to, eh, from your perspective, if they're tending to do something that you don't want them to be doing or you want it to be another way, that's the part of the inner child and the stuff that you're healing epigenetically, or even reprogramming in yourself about how relationships work in order to clear space to get in that vibration for alignment and connection and consistent connection,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Because I'm even finding myself, when I receive pleasure in certain aspects, I do not have the capacity. Where's the lid? Can you go get me the lid for it, please? I do not have the capacity to maintain it yet. So I'm working on, okay, what are those pieces that won't let me maintain this pleasure experience? But I can receive this pleasure experience. Okay, then what allows me to see that? And then I'm learning myself in a way that I can then shift my entire world. And I step willingly into the change. If you got to find out when you're nervous, you're a flat singer, and then you're like, oh, but I thought I was so good all the time. But it's like, okay, that's my delusion. But I want it to be that grand. I can work my way to that space of, that's where consistency comes in. That's where the learning to actually, if you have a therapist, which I suggest, that's where learning how to show up consistently, vulnerable, even though it's going to be uncomfortable, becomes a thing. Because that's part of relationships too, is we're now interacting with someone as another dynamic. And for those of us who have pets or children or even parents, right? We can change all we want, but what we do does not determine what they're going to do or their reaction. It We kind of just figure out how we want to navigate with that. And
Mm-hmm.
so the twin flame journey thing is a really interesting thing, because once you get yourself in energetic alignment and you can hold energetic alignment, then the physical stuff will just start to play out and you'll be less enmeshed with where's this nigga at? I mean, for lack of better.
Words, right? And that's, yeah, true, true.
So I
What's on
completely,
Friday?
I completely under. I'm just gonna say I completely agree. My twin like basketball, so I like using the analogy like we on the same team playing. So now it's time for me to take a timeout. I'm gonna cheerleader from the side, and now he's in the game. and now he's going to do his part. And then I realized too that all this love and beautifulness that we come in with, it's kind of distracting for them on their healing journey. So sometimes we got to go sit down and be a cheerleader from the side and just watch them do their work. So think about it that way. I don't like doing the hierarchy thing, but be the cheerleader from the side and be like, yeah, it's your turn to go handle that. I'm gonna go over here and handle my business, and you just we'll catch up later, I guess.
Yeah. And I like that analogy too. Yeah, and we're all striving to ascend to go higher than where we are. So it's not as I'm using the analogy of I'm better than or you're lower than. It's just again it's ascending and making sure that again when we get into alignment that it's the same, and all of them is pretty much different for each one of us as we're going through that. And we're just, like you said, the time out, that's been another buzzword I've been hearing a lot going out. It's just a time out. It doesn't mean that we're not playing the game. It's just like she's saying, once in the game and you're just sitting and saying, okay, I'm going to go do this and that while you go in, and now it's my time, tag me in. It's my turn to work on my stuff. Or we might both be out there working on it, and it might be seeming like I'm on two different teams, but we're really on the same, and because me on another team, I'm learning other new styles, new coach, new this. And then when we come together, when we make that one team, we can be able to be a winning team together. So it's a lot of layers and a lot of dynamics that's going on as we're saying that as well through. And whatever it is right now, the push is for us to make sure that we're doing the work so that we can feel like we are really centered in ourselves, that we can hold, I like what April said, can hold that energy of that oneness or that Ace of Cups energy that is self-love. And I'm in it, and no matter what you do on the sidelines, just like when you playing the game and they talking they stuff, and they talk about, man, you can't get past me, you ain't that good, you gonna drop the ball. So no matter what's being said to you, whether it's coming from your person, which is they're not bad talking you, but whatever you considered it used to be, the old you, it's like they talking bad to me, and you hear it as you saying, okay, that doesn't really phase me. You're doing you, I'm doing me, and you still be able to have your head in the game of things of life or this relationship of twin flame. So um that is what we're getting pushed to, is again true alignment with self first. And I think a lot of times that's what we don't want to be able to do the work, because we've been conditioned on the outside. You need a man, you need this. I don't feel whole. Society says I'm supposed to have somebody with me. No, on this twin flame journey, our thing is we came here to really understand that we are truly the greatest love ourselves. And then that person is just, again, there as a compliment, or again, we're learning from each other, and we're doing those things of leveling up together in our own ways. And we might have other dynamics, as April said, of doing it, and that I can't make you do anything, but I can learn from you. And maybe even our differences, if you're doing something the Y way and I do it the Z way, then maybe we can trade off and say, oh, I never thought of it like that. Maybe I can try to do it the Y way, and maybe you can try to do it the Z way. And so that's where we're really truly coming. And on it, they say healing mate. Maybe we need to call it. They said, and now I'm looking at it, saying not to call it twin flames no more. Maybe that's a different way. Maybe they're a healing mate, because that's what they do. They bring out all that stuff to make us heal. I don't know. That's another way of looking at it. It's too. All right then. So as I see, she dropped out. I guess when I was talking, she went, and I was channeling. So tell us, give some more information as we wrap up. How can we get in touch with you? I don't have
I'm
a
at
subject.
www.up Therapy Solutions, www.up Therapy Solutions, and I'm right now located at Focus Therapy Clinic in Southfield, Michigan, and I work at a nonprofit. But you can always find me on IG at Steffi Pie One.
All right then. Yes. She's always on there giving you good stuff, and also inspirational things on there too as well. So that's a good thing. I don't know. She was doing it, but then I see she had take that down. I don't know if classes, especially when we talk about generational stuff, and especially if you talk about if you're a female and you're trying to clear things, because that even it came up in one of my sessions too as well, to be able to about yoni. Yoni is another way. April Williams is very good and doing that as well, as far as helping you to clear out generational stuff through the womb. And so if you're interested in doing that, probably again when this uploads, or look at some of the old ones on this channel where I have in the description box, where you can be able to get in touch with April Williams and look and see how you can be able to clear through that away. Right now, for me, my main focus has been either past life regression sessions. You could go to AshantiWellnessCenter.com for that. You can always get a reading from me as well. And then also, I've been doing subliminals. I've been wanting to do that for almost the start of, I think, maybe 2 years into me being on Divine Unisouls 11. And I said I had wanted to do subliminal messaging as well. And so now I'm into that. And I've been doing that according to the different zodiac or astrological signs. So you use that to help pump you up in your sign, or your sun sign, your moon sign, or your ascending sign and your rising sign. Listen to that for 21 days, and it should be able to help to create that shift. And so that is what I've been into now with the subliminal messaging, messages as well. And it has brain waves infused with it, nature. Well, so it's me doing affirmations and statements underlined in there too. And I think it's just great, especially when we got different energies, like from the moon, and it's emotionally affecting us. Like right now, the Cancer, the good one is to listen to is the Cancer, Cancerian one that I have up. And then also we got Aries is infused in there too as well. So we're going to be moving soon into the Leo aspect. And so that way, and moving into that. And so the next one I'm going to put up there is the Leo subliminal messaging, the iHeart movies, to help us, especially for those of us that's mental and keep on thinking negative, that negative looping or that rumination that we like to process in. That's another way to kind of help you to do that as well. So that's what I'm into. What happened back since April? You back just very quickly. What's happening with you in your Yoni program?
I'm getting all of the initial stuff finalized right now. Um, while I was on Big Island, the ancestors and I were communicating about how I needed to shift how the program was working or was going to work in the future for helping women heal and adjust and reconnect with their bodies and their wombs after trauma. So I'm now I did a lot of information. Now I'm
Okay.
accumulating it into forms that it's bite size, and so I'll start to be releasing small portions of it on my Instagram. And I think it's interesting that there is some friction with social media because it does have its own algorithm and it does have its own agenda. And so I'm learning how to still be present and still be an advocate for my fellow um, thrivers, right? Who are stepping into that righteousness. And so I'm moving how it's going to work, and then also how I'm integrating the arts because I'm getting called more into my artist self, like stuff I did as a child is now
Okay.
appearing before me, and it's like, okay, this is cool. This is what I get to step into, and it's much more graceful of stumbling into full mission. So I had to readjust. So it's like about a month and a half behind what I thought the original schedule was, but everything's going to roll out as planned very soon. And I actually have some other smaller, less expensive packages that are going to come out with it as well that could set women up for it. Because
Okay.
in order to be able to heal from your trauma, you need to have some stuff set up already that you're working on versus, okay, you're going to heal from trauma today or the next 3 6 weeks. It doesn't work like that. As Stephanie can say, definitely vouch. It's not a, okay, I'm just going to double click my trauma away. So, you know, sit here and watch a bunch of TikTok videos and I'm healed. That's not how it works. It's a much slower process. And as I'm also an example of it and healing from all of that stuff, I'm like, okay, how does that play out for me? Yeah, I may be super hyper intelligent, borderline genius, be able to do all this stuff, but you really express your genius if you're trying to rush through a process,
No.
trying to you're gonna do really well on a test when you're high anxiety trying to push through it? Not really. And life really isn't a test like that. And that's a lot of the programming. So I'm having to go through the deprogramming in order to set up the reprogramming. But it'll be out soon. And for
Okay.
those of you, I'll cut a special discount for our playground, across the board for all of my materials. I mean, I'm even finding women that are going to make the yoni steam seats for me, and it's a beautiful process. So I'm just taking it piece by piece.
Okay. All right. Then while you're on this, get us on out here. You can start it off.
Stay blessed, stay golden, and remember, you were made for this golden life.
All right then, and Steph.
Yes, remember that first and the most important relationship you can have is the one which you have with yourself first.
All right then. And as always, stay uplifted, stay motivated, stay ascended. Namaste and namago. All right. Until next time, see you on the playground experience.